Now, you may have heard that the majority of the new homes sold in the market is beyond the affordability range of most Malaysians. So we wanted to know, if you're earning less than 3,000 ringgit, can you actually buy a home in the Klang Valley? And what are your options? We posed these questions to property investment expert Faizul Ridzuan.
Faizul Ridzuan runs a property consultancy company that helps customers buy property. He says besides government housing programs like Rumah Whip or Prima, it is possible to buy property on the secondary market with a salary of less than 3,000 ringgit.
We've helped someone last year on a basic salary of 1,008 to be able to afford to buy a 3-bedroom apartment, walkable to an upcoming MRT station somewhere in Damansara. So the question here is that, is there such supply available? The supply is available, but is people aware of these supplies? Not so sure. And for most people, they are not, because people tend to look at newer properties, but the property that I just mentioned is a property which is about a 10-year-old property. So it doesn't look as good, but location-wise, it's still pretty good. It's not a low-cost flat, but it's a low, medium-cost kind of like apartment. So such stocks are still available today, even in good locations like Damansara. I am not sure if the public is looking at the right places or being educated to look at the right places.
According to Faizul, if you earn a monthly income of 2,000 ringgit and don't have high financial commitments, then banks should be ready to finance you. So that means avoid buying a car with a big price tag and pay off your student loans as early as possible. Faizul says the challenge in finding financing for your home is harder if you earn less than 3,500 ringgit.
If your net income per month is below 3,005, the calculation is different compared to those who are above 3,005. I can give the simple mathematics. If you make 4,000 per month, every 1,000 that you make becomes 100,000 loan. So if you are earning a 4,000 per month net income, so you can actually get a maximum housing loan of typically about 400,000. The same calculation though doesn't apply to the B40 group. So that means if your net is below 3,005, then typically you can only use maximum 20 to about 25% of your monthly commitment, monthly income as your loan. So essentially, if someone makes about 2,000 per month, they can only get 100,000 loan. So it's half of that.
Buying property on the secondary market also has its challenges, as banks won't give you a 100% loan. You need to pay at least 10% for the down payment.
When you buy sub-sale, typically you need to basically cough up the 10% down payment, which is actually quite heavy for a lot of people. So if they don't have the right skill set, they will not be able to buy property using as minimal capital as possible. And they have to save up the 10%.
Statistics show that there's a large property overhang in the market these days. So what effect will this have on home buyers, especially first-time home buyers?
Starting from next year, I foresee that these unsold stocks will become more of a fire sale. So when they become a fire sale, things which is 650 2 or 3 years ago might be available at 450. So what is beyond the reach of a first-time home buyer 2 or 3 years ago, now it's completed. Developers say, you know what, I just want to sell it at whatever price, and they sell it at 400, 450,000. That's when, for example, it will have some form of impact towards first-time home buyer. The best thing about this is that the property is already completed, and for these guys, for them to go and buy, they don't have to pay a lot of interest, and typically they don't have to pay so much money to go and buy. So 5,000, you'll be able to buy a house, decent location, all completed, no need to pay interest, you can move in immediately. So that's the best thing about property overhang. Property overhang means property developers have to be realistic in their assumption. They have to pare down the price to the point whereby it's more friendly, it's more feasible for the first-time home buyer to basically go in and buy properties.
Faizul adds that developers have already started building smaller 3-bedroom apartments and condos to help bring down the price. Meanwhile, in the secondary market, prices too have gone down to a level that's more realistic.
Even for sub-sale, especially on the middle to high-end category of property, the prices has continued to fall. We've seen, for example, 3-bedroom condos that used to command 650,000, 700,000 in Wangsa Maju, today has dropped to below 600,000 levels. Now, But I wouldn't say there's a drop in property values. I would say property values are normalizing after a spectacular, people are just speculating and, having some unrealistic expectation that if I buy a property, I must make 200,000. It's no longer the case. People just have to be realistic. I don't even think 600,000 is the market value of the property. I think it's 550. But so it will continue to slide. So it will appear that property market is bad and property prices are sliding. To me, the answer is that property values are normalizing to the point where it should be priced.
What about people who have trouble renting out their property, especially if the rent that you're earning is less than the mortgage that you have to pay?
My advice to people who have actually entered the property at the wrong price and have problem renting is to basically do this. Number one, fully understand the market segment that they are operating in. Number two, prepare the unit to what the tenant wants instead of what they want. Right? A lot of people seem to think, I like this, I like pink color, walls, and therefore I think a lot of people like pink color walls. The reality is that people like, neutral color walls, right? And what they can also do is that instead of renting a whole house, they can actually break it to rental per room or even by rental per head.
So should first-time homebuyers wait a little longer next year before buying their home? Faizul says buyers can wait, but not to wait too long. Instead, they should take the time to do as much research as possible. There are many property talks they can attend and materials they can read online.
Of course, I would prefer to encourage people to learn a little bit more about this idea of buying property using as minimal cash as possible, because it can really be done. It's just that people, when you don't seek the knowledge, you wouldn't know, right? So if you can find today a seller which is a motivated seller, so typically a motivated seller doesn't even need 10%. And I've seen cases in the last 12 months, the seller only requires 2% down payment and that's it. Right? So the idea here is to find, number one, motivated seller. Number two is to learn the skill set of being able to buy the property using as minimal capital as possible. If you can understand those two, you're not required to then save up, a full 10% down payment. So that means instead of waiting 3 or 4 years with the possibility of property price increasing, you can actually buy today, locked at today's price point, by finding a very friendly seller, a little bit more motivated seller who is okay with you putting as little cash as possible.